In the dim hush before dawn, the wind moves strangely across the starlit plain, as if carrying whispers from a past no one quite remembers, and a future no one is prepared to face. Shadows ripple where no creature walks, the earth holding its breath beneath the weight of something returning, something old, something wounded, something furious. A faint tremor rolls beneath the soil, so soft that even the keenest hunter would mistake it for the sigh of a restless hill. But the darkness knows, the mountains know, and somewhere, deep beneath the iron roots of the world, Angband waits like a beast, hungry for its master. Welcome to the Elder Darkness. On this journey we slip into the earliest days of Beleriand, before the great wars fully claim their shape, and follow the secret, silent return of Morgoth as he flees the judgment of Valinor and steals back into Middle-earth. The story winds through forests that do not yet fear him, rivers that have never carried ash, and skies that have not learned to shudder. And yes, you might find yourself somewhere in the story, tucked into a corner of a campfire scene or drifting in the wake of a wandering elf. If you enjoy these deep dives into the ancient ages, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a tale from Middle-earth's long memory. And tell us, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Now lie back and relax as we travel to the world of Middle-earth. Morgoth's hidden return. Morgoth slips from Valinor's light into Middle-earth's shadow, quietly reforging Angband and stirring the first tremors of fear across Beleriand. Morgoth crosses the cold seas under moonless skies, his spirit diminished, but still vast, like a storm holding its breath. He drifts eastward, leaving behind the radiant shores of Valinor, a fugitive from the very land he once sought to corrupt. He moves unseen, the Valar believing him broken. But darkness rarely stays dead. It simply finds a quieter place to sharpen itself. He reaches the far northern coasts of Middle-earth, where ice stretches like a frozen crown. There, he sinks into the hidden caverns of the Iron Mountains, his old refuge left long ago in ruins, and begins to rebuild Angband. Rock splits, tunnels yawn. Smoke coils up from places no fire should touch. What was once a wound becomes a fortress again. And of course, Angband is not merely a stronghold, it is resentment hammered into stone. While Morgoth works, the lands of Beleriand go about their quiet days. Elves wander beneath the starlight, still newcomers to the world, their songs untouched by dread. Thingol rules Doriath with calm authority, unaware that his realm sleeps just hours' march from a rising nightmare. Melian walks beneath the trees, wise and serene, sensing a faint shift in the world's tone, like a harp string vibrating out of place. But even she cannot yet name it. Far to the east, the Blue Mountains stand in silence, and beyond them lie the lands where hobbits will one day roam, though right now it's only grass, wind, and the occasional confused fox. It's always pleasantly strange to think that somewhere in this ancient prelude, the Shire's hills are just empty mounds waiting for cheerful chaos. Middle-earth historians still debate whether the earliest hobbits already exist at this time, peeking curiously from tall grasses. But honestly, imagining tiny silhouettes spying on the first shadows of Morgoth is a bit adorable. Meanwhile, deep under Thangorodrim's forming towers, Morgoth summons his surviving servants. Many were scattered or slain during his capture centuries ago, but those who remain crawl back like insects drawn to a familiar scent. Balrogs stir in the cracks beneath the world, awakened one by their master's call. They rise slowly as if remembering what it means to move. Flame coils around their limbs. The earth sweats heat. Morgoth bends his will into the iron foundations. His power flows into stone, less than before, but poisoned now with hatred distilled by humiliation. Every blow of his forging echoes faintly across Beleriand, felt only as distant thunder. The Sindar notice changes in the air, a subtle dimming of the stars on certain nights, a chill that doesn't belong. Some scouts whisper uneasily about a strange heaviness in the north, but most shrug it off. After all, nothing terrifying has crawled from those mountains in ages, and if something did, surely Círdan would send word, or Melian would warn them. Still, the signs accumulate. Animals begin to avoid the northern wilds. Birds migrate in odd patterns. A few brave wanderers report strange shapes moving beneath the foothills, shadows that don't match their sources. Thingol listens, concerned but unconvinced. He has ruled long enough to know that fear can color stories more vividly than truth. Yet the truth is already on the move. One night, under a sky pricked with cold stars, a tremor rolls south from Angband's reborn halls. It's small, barely stronger than the rumble of a distant herd, but it marks the first full awakening of Morgoth's forges. Flames twist upward. Smoke leaks from vents that hadn't existed the day before. Deep within, Morgoth smiles, a thin, cruel thing. He begins shaping orcs from captured, corrupted spirits and twisted remnants of living beings. Their first screams echo through tunnels like the birth cries of a new, broken race. And out in the world, no one knows, not yet. Across Beleriand, life continues. Elves trade stories beneath the stars. Hunters track moonlit deer. Dwarves in the Blue Mountains delve new tunnels, occasionally muttering about faint vibrations in the bedrock. One of them even jokes that the world must be grumbling about the price of iron again, which feels like the first documented case of dwarven market humor. Far south, in lands that will one day host the Fellowship's desperate flight, the forests are tranquil. Remember how tall Gimli was? Well, picture him trying to wander these ancient woods. The branches here are lower, thicker, and designed to smack anyone under 6 feet tall. Even legends need to duck. But danger crawls steadily closer. Morgoth knows he must move slowly. He's not yet strong enough to challenge the Valar openly. But Middle-earth is ripe for reshaping. He sends out his first spies, wraith-like shapes, half-formed creatures, and whispers carried on cold winds. They slip into the wilds, observing, mapping, preparing. Angband's influence seeps outward like ink spreading through parchment. Melian senses the disturbance more clearly now. She moves through Doriath with growing tension, her gaze occasionally turning northward as if she can almost see into the far shadows. She warns Thingol that a darkness is rising, though even she cannot yet name its face. The Maya's intuition, however, never errs. In the northern reaches, Morgoth finally steps outside Angband for the first time since his return. The world around him shudders, subtle but real, as though the very air is flinching. His presence spreads like frost on glass, slow, creeping, undeniable. The First Wars of Beleriand have not yet begun, but the stage is set. Fear flows invisibly along the roots of the mountains. The rivers whisper of change. The land holds its breath, and soon all will hear the sound of war waking. Shadow over the north. As Angband awakens, Morgoth's spies and creatures seep into the wilds, provoking early clashes with the unsuspecting Sindar while rumors of distant powers unsettle Middle-earth. The north changes first. It always does. Wind slipping past the Iron Mountains carries a taste sharper than cold, something metallic, bruised, and wrong. The animals sense it before the elves do. Entire herds begin avoiding the foothills, bending their migration paths eastward as if they've collectively decided that whatever sleeps beneath those peaks ought to be left alone. Even wolves grow uneasy, their howls shorter, more abrupt, as though they fear something will answer back. But for a time, the Sindar still move through the world with unburdened steps. They live in the long peace of Thingol's reign, a peace so deep it almost convinces them that nothing could shatter it. Life is rhythm, crafting, singing, wandering, laughing. Círdan tends the havens in the west. The hunters of Doriath return with quiet pride, and the stars shine bright enough that some elves idly wonder whether this age might finally settle into something like comfort. Then the rumors start drifting south. At first, they're little more than tavern talk, strange footfalls in the night, trees cracking without wind, flickers of light far across the plain. Círdan's mariners whisper about odd shadows moving along the coast, moving against the moon's direction. One sailor claims he saw smoke rising where no forge should stand. His friends tease him, saying perhaps a dwarf was simply having a bad day and decided to set an entire hill on fire. But the laughter fades quickly. The report carries an aftertaste of truth. Middle-earth historians still debate whether these early sightings came from Morgoth's servants or from natural tremors stirred by Angband's rebuilding, but either way, the effect is the same. Unease begins to ripple through Beleriand like a low note from a distant horn. Morgoth's creatures are not yet numerous enough for open conflict, but they are clever, and they are testing the boundaries. They slip through forests under moonless skies, leaving no footprints, only the sensation that someone has been watching. A few Sindar scouts vanish while patrolling near the northern marches. Their companions find only broken branches and disturbed moss, no tracks to follow. And when they bring the news to Thingol, he listens with growing heaviness. Melian, meanwhile, feels the darkness rising like pressure in the air. She stops more often in her wandering meditations, pausing to gaze northward. The forest itself responds to her unease. Birds fall silent in her presence, and the breeze seems to hesitate. Once, when walking alone through a grove, she senses a faint ripple of Morgoth's power. Thin, restrained, like a hand testing water before plunging in. It vanishes the moment she focuses on it. Still, she tells Thingol plainly, something wakes beneath the mountains. But even Melian cannot see the shape of what is coming. North of Dorthonion, Angband expands. Morgoth commands battalions of orcs, drilling them in the deep halls where once only silence lived. Their snarls echo against stone, their weapons clatter. Their numbers swell to fill caverns like pools filling with dark water. And above them, Balrogs drift through shadows, their fire muted but deadly. They watch the orcs with contempt, but obey Morgoth unquestioningly. The Dark Lord himself walks the uppermost tower under starlight, disguised in a cloak of shadow. His gaze sweeps south. He measures distance, strength, complacency. This is a different Morgoth than the one who once raised the world with fire in the first battle of the powers. He is diminished, his power diminished with him, forced to channel his might into manipulation and command rather than raw destruction. But he is also cunning, so much more cunning than most imagine. It is this cunning that now shapes Beleriand's fate. He sends out spies fashioned from malice and shadow, creatures half wraith, half beast. They carry messages to the scattered remnants of evil things still lingering in the world. Wolves with spirits darker than their fur stalk southward. Bat-like shapes flit across the moon. Even the spiders of the north stir, their webs thickening in patterns that hint at some unsettling coordination. One might joke that this is the universe's first union of evil arachnids, but nobody in their right mind wants to negotiate their dental plan. And as the creatures spread, so too does the fear. Near Lake Helivorn, a group of Sindar hunters notice that the forest has grown unnaturally quiet. No chirping insects, no rustling brush, no night birds calling to one another. One of them comments softly that the silence feels like the pause before lightning strikes. Another counters that he actually prefers the quiet. It means fewer squirrels judging his shooting form. But their attempt at humor rings thin. When they return to Thingol's court, they describe a darkness in the woods, as though the night is watching itself. Overly poetic, perhaps, but unsettling. Meanwhile, in the Blue Mountains, the dwarves pick up on disturbances of their own. Earth tremors grow slightly more frequent. A few miners swear they heard distant hammering under the stone, far too rhythmic to be natural. Their lore masters tell them it is impossible, for their deepest maps show nothing but stable bedrock to the west. But the sounds persist. Once, a dwarf named Olin remarks that something big is either digging or rolling over in its sleep, which becomes a running joke in the halls until the tremors get worse. And while the Sindar and dwarves trade uneasy glances across their borders, Morgoth tests his new servants. He sends a small force of orcs south, not to wage war yet, but to scout and provoke. They creep through ravines, hide beneath ledges, and slip along the eaves of Beleriand's forests. Their movements are clumsy at first. Many are fresh from Angband's forges, new to the world above ground. But they learn quickly. Their first encounters with wildlife are brutal, their inexperience obvious in the unnecessary noise they make. Yet each day they adapt. They grow quieter, more patient, more dangerous. One of the earliest clashes with the elves happens almost by accident. A patrol of Thingol's warriors, moving quietly through the northern marches, spots what they think is a wounded animal. When they approach, it lunges, a twisted orc armed with a crude blade, its eyes glowing with sickness. The elves recoil at the sight, shocked that such a creature could exist. They kill it quickly, but its presence raises far more questions than answers. The body is brought back to Thingol. Melian studies it with grave silence. She has seen corruption before, but this is different. This is engineered, crafted, intentional. She tells Thingol that Morgoth must have returned. Her words fall like stones into still water. Thingol orders scouts to sweep the northern wilds more thoroughly, but the truth is already clear. The peace is ending. Even the rivers feel it. The waters running down from the mountains grow colder. Plants along their banks yellow faster, as if something in the soil has soured. Birds migrating across the north alter their paths, flying in uneasy curves that generations of instinct never taught them. And for a brief moment, a few elves spot strange lights flickering atop the distant mountains, too bright for campfires, too steady for lightning. The response to these sightings varies. Some elves say that perhaps dwarves simply discovered a new metal and got overexcited. Others insist the lights are omens of ruin. But Melian alone understands the truth. Morgoth is claiming the north again. Meanwhile, out near the far reaches of Beleriand, The land that will one day see the Fellowship riding hard from the ring wraiths remains peaceful for now. But even there, the wind carries a faint, cold taste that doesn't belong. A small reminder that history has already begun shifting beneath everyone's feet. One curious thing, a few lore masters in later ages claim that a family of wandering hobbits passed through the distant east around this time and may have sensed a strange chill in the wind. Whether that's true or just academic wishful thinking depends on how much one believes hobbits enjoy wandering near world-altering crises. Given their track record, dragons, rings, balrogs, maybe it's not impossible. Back in Angband, Morgoth prepares for what comes next. His fortress is nearly complete. His armies swell. His dominion stretches further with each passing week. The shadow over the north has become too large to ignore. The First Wars are about to begin. First Wars ignite. The Sindar muster under Thingol as Morgoth's forces erupt in open assaults, testing elven defenses and reshaping the balance of danger in the ancient forests and plains. The shadow that once drifted subtly across the north now thickens into something palpable, an unseen hand pressing down upon the land, shaping fear into form. Beleriand feels it first in its wildlife. Deer bolt at empty air, owls abandon their hunting grounds, and even the trees seem to lean away from the north as though they can sense a storm gathering beyond mortal sight. What was once rumor is now a rhythm, darkness moving with purpose. Thingol strengthens patrols in the northern marches, sending his finest trackers to follow the strange disturbances. Yet even the most skilled warriors of Doriath cannot perceive the full shape of Morgoth's design. His spies slip through shadows too thin for light to cling to. His creatures test the borders without committing to open conflict. It is a slow, calculated escalation, one that resembles a hunter circling prey before the pounce. And far beneath Thangorodrim's rising peaks, Morgoth watches with cold satisfaction. His armies, orc-kind in growing legions, fill caverns that echo with their clamor. Their armor is crude but effective, iron hammered without artistry, built only to kill. Balrogs drift through the halls like smoldering judges, ensuring discipline remains brutal and absolute. The forges roar ever hotter, fed by Morgoth's own malice. Yet even now he restrains himself. He knows that to rise too quickly risks drawing the eyes of the Valar once more. What he needs is a conflict large enough to secure the north, but not so vast that it shakes the west. A war contained, yet devastating. The First Wars of Beleriand will serve perfectly. The spark comes suddenly. One early dusk, a Sindar patrol encounters a larger party of orcs than any seen before, nearly 50 of them moving with eerie coordination. The elves engage cautiously, believing they can rout this strange band easily. But these orcs fight differently. Their attacks are fierce, reckless, driven by something like fanaticism. And though the elves ultimately defeat them, 3 of Thingol's finest fall, an unprecedented loss in a land that has known peace for centuries. When news reaches Thingol, his sorrow is matched only by rising fury. Melian stands at his side, the quiet tension in her expression confirming what he fears most. Morgoth's hand is behind this. The next skirmishes come quickly. Orc bands begin striking isolated villages on Beleriand's fringes. They burn small outposts, poison river shallows, and steal livestock. They retreat swiftly, leaving no corpses behind, dragging away their dead as though unwilling to let elves study their nature. This unnerves the Sindar deeply. These attacks are not simple raids. They are reconnaissance. They are rehearsals. Middle-earth historians still debate whether the orcs in these early assaults acted under direct command or acted too aggressively and forced Morgoth's hand. Some even claim that a single reckless orc captain cursed Angband by attacking before the Dark Lord had given the signal, though imagining Morgoth dealing with rogue middle management is honestly funnier than it has any right to be. Thingol gathers his war leaders in Menegroth. Maps are laid across polished stone tables. Scouts report that the north grows increasingly perilous, that strange fires burn on slopes where snow should cling year-round, and that some valleys echo faintly with drums at night. Though no elf has ever seen Angband rebuilt, the signs point unmistakably toward a fortress rising behind the mountains. Círdan sends warnings from the Falas, noting that the coastline near the northwestern reaches feels wrong, as though some slow poison seeps into the very tide. Even his mariners speak less freely now. They keep lanterns burning through the night, something they haven't needed in centuries. And so, the Sindar finally prepare for war. Elves of Doriath, the most skilled with spears and bows, gather at Thingol's command. Melian increases the subtle power she casts around the forest, weaving early threads of protection that will one day become the girdle of Melian. Not yet a full barrier, but something like a guardian's breath around the realm. But the enemy is faster. The first true assault erupts in the region of the northern hills, where scattered settlements of Sindar live in quiet harmony. From the darkness pours a force far larger than any seen so far, hundreds of orcs shrieking with a unity unnatural to their kind. They descend upon the outlying woods, hacking down trees and setting brush ablaze. The flames startle even themselves. Orcs are not used to fire, and one particularly confused orc is reported to have smacked another for standing too close to a burning bush. Even in catastrophe, chaos follows them. Thingol responds swiftly. His warriors race north, led by captains carrying glowing torches, one of the few reliable signals under starlit canopies. The clash that follows marks the beginning of the First Wars of Beleriand. Under the starlight, elven arrows streak downward in graceful arcs, cutting through the front ranks of the orcs. The Sindar move with elegance, their steps precise, their strikes deliberate. But the orcs overwhelm with sheer numbers. For every 10 that fall, 20 more emerge from the shadows. Their cries echo across the hills like metal scraping against bone. The battle rages through the night. Elves take high ground, orcs swarm low, spears flash, blades ring, and the forest shakes with the clash of wills. In the midst of the chaos, a young Sindar warrior named Voronwo recalls tales of a halfling centuries later, one who would survive the horrors of Cirith Ungol. In a strange moment of levity, he mutters that if later ages can produce little folk brave enough to walk through Mordor, then surely he can handle an orc or two. Humor becomes a shield, thin but real. By dawn, the elves secure a hard-won victory, driving the orcs back into the northern valleys. But the triumph is bitter. Too many lives are lost, too many homes burned, and still, the assaults continue. Over the next months, orc attacks spread across Beleriand. Some strike near the Falas, testing Círdan's coastal defenses. Others slip eastward toward the Blue Mountains, troubling the dwarves who had hoped to remain uninvolved. The dwarves, famously unamused by surprise warfare, consider joining Thingol, but choose for now to strengthen their halls instead. The tremors beneath their tunnels grow sharper, and some swear that deep within the stone, something massive moves. The Sindar are stretched thin. Their forces cannot cover the entirety of Beleriand's vast wilds. Morgoth knows this, and he presses the advantage. He launches a coordinated assault near the river Gelion, catching several elven patrols unprepared. The resulting battles last for days, smoke rising in thick columns that mar the starlit sky. Yet in every clash, something becomes clear. The Sindar fight with growing resolve. The elegance of their art, the grace of their movement, the sharpened precision of their weapons. These are not traits one easily suppresses. Their resilience hints at what will one day define the elves of Middle-earth in the greatest wars of later ages. Still, the First Wars cut deeply. Beleriand begins to transform. Forests scar, hills blacken. The air witnesses the first true cries of battle since the elves awoke at Cuivienen. Underneath all this, Morgoth watches. Every victory, every loss, every shift in terrain, he studies them with a tactician's eye, strengthened by malice. He is not seeking a quick conquest. He is testing Middle-earth, stretching its defenses, finding its weaknesses. But as he pushes southward, a quiet truth begins to unfold. The Sindar are not breaking. And something unexpected stirs far across the Western Sea, something that will change everything before these wars can swallow Beleriand whole. But for now, the forest smolders, the rivers run colder, and the First Wars burn ever hotter. Doriath stands alone. With Beleriand in chaos, Morgoth presses hard against the Girdle's borders, and the elves face their darkest hours before the long-awaited arrival of the Noldor shifts the fate of war. Smoke drifts like pale ghosts across the fields north of Doriath, curling through shattered branches and settling over ground scarred by countless skirmishes. Beleriand breathes heavily now, its forests tense, its rivers uneasy, its quiet places forever changed. The First Wars have carved deep lines into the land, and though the Sindar hold their ground, their vigilance grows thinner with every passing moon. Morgoth feels the shift. From the iron crown upon his brow down to the foundations of Angband, he senses the tremble of resistance that refuses to buckle. His legions push harder, prowling toward realms that remain untouched by battle, searching for cracks in the armor of the Sindar's resolve. Yet the heart of this realm, Doriath, stands untouched, luminous with a power he has not yet dared to challenge. The reason is simple. Melian. Though she has not yet fully risen to the height of her later might, her presence bends the world subtly. The shadows around Doriath hesitate. Trees whisper differently. Even orcs who stray too close feel a prickling on their skin, as if the air itself warns them away. Some flee without understanding why. Others push forward and vanish, never returning to tell what force claimed them. Still, Morgoth tests, always testing. His orcs creep south in larger numbers now, sometimes emboldened by balrogs who slip between trees with flame dimmed and whispers hot as breath. These lieutenants of fire do not yet dare cross into the deep woods, but their presence bolsters the orcs' courage and sends ripples of unease through the Sindar, who glimpse fire gliding between trunks where no torch should burn. Thingol responds quickly. He commands his captains to reposition their lines, strengthening the northern marches with archers of great skill and sending swift-moving patrols east and west. The Sindar adapt as warriors do. They learn the enemy's patterns, anticipate ambushes, and set counters of their own. Elven arrows meet Orcish raids with lethal precision. Yet for all their grace, the Sindar are weary. The First Wars have stretched into months, some say years, depending on how time is measured beneath starlight. And no matter how many orcs fall, more rise from the furnaces of Angband. Morgoth's supply seems endless, an ugly reminder that evil mass produces far more readily than good. One night, under a canopy of ancient oaks, a young warrior muses aloud that maybe this is how the dwarves feel when battling goblins in the Blue Mountains, endless waves that make no sense strategically. His companion replies that if a hobbit centuries later can hold up a shimmering sword named Sting and make goblins rethink their life choices, then surely the Sindar can manage a few orcs. The joke is thin, but it keeps fear at bay. The worst comes when Morgoth attempts something bold. A force nearly 1,000 strong marches south under cover of clouded skies, following hidden ravines towards the borders of Doriath. They move silently for creatures so chaotic, driven by orders enforced with brutal discipline. Their goal is not conquest. Morgoth knows he cannot yet break the Maya who guards the realm, but to test her boundaries, to see whether her power stretches further than rumor claims. But Melian is not idle. In the dim hours before dawn, she senses the pressure of malice moving toward Doriath like a bruised tide. She stands at the edge of the forest, her expression calm but grave, and whispers words older than starlight. Power unfurls from her presence in thin, shimmering threads. The air thickens. The trees lean inward as though listening. When the orcs reach the eaves of the forest, something invisible pushes them back. Not violently, simply a presence so absolute that stepping forward feels like walking into a mountain. Some attempt to force their way through. They fail. Their minds reel with terror they don't understand. A few collapse. A few turn on one another. The rest scatter, screaming in confusion. This invisible resistance marks the earliest shape of what will become the Girdle of Melian, though not yet a full barrier, more like a soft breath that keeps darkness at bay. A warning. In Angband, Morgoth feels the failure like a sting, but he does not retreat. Instead, he shifts. If he cannot break Doriath yet, then he will isolate it. He pours more orcs into Beleriand's eastern plains, stirring conflict near the Blue Mountains. He pushes others toward the Falas, hoping to pressure Círdan's havens. He even releases lesser monsters long held in chains, wolves large enough to blot out moonlight, bat-like creatures whose screeches send flocks of birds fleeing in panic. Amid this chaos, a curious fringe tale emerges. Some Sindar swear they saw a creature resembling a massive, armored boar roaming the northern hills, one that seemed entirely uninterested in the war and instead intent on stealing acorns. Whether this creature existed or was simply the product of exhausted imagination, Middle-earth historians still debate whether the boar was real, a Maya in disguise, or perhaps an extremely lost early ancestor of the famed boar that would one day annoy the people of Rohan. No consensus exists, of course. But amid all this turmoil, one truth grows brighter. Doriath stands. And that frustrates Morgoth more than any battlefield loss. His attention shifts increasingly to Thingol, Melian, and the realm that shelters the Sindar so effectively. He contemplates new strategies, darker ones, spies, spirits, corrupted beasts, but each idea fails beneath the quiet gravity of Melian's power. She dwells in Middle-earth by choice, but her origins reach beyond it, and Morgoth cannot forget the echo of the West that clings to her presence. Yet even as he plans, the world shifts in ways he does not anticipate. Far beyond the western shores, the Noldor stir in Aman. whispers of rebellion, the theft of Feanor's jewels, and the doom pronounced in Valinor begin shaping a storm that will soon sweep across the sea. Morgoth's First Wars in Beleriand, intended to secure unchallenged dominion, have instead prepared the land for the arrival of enemies far more dangerous than the Sindar alone. He does not see this yet, but he feels something building, a tension, a tremor, a change in the stars themselves. And one night, as he surveys his armies from the ramparts of Angband, he pauses. The northern wind shifts. It carries not fear, but anticipation. Thingol does not know what approaches, though Melian senses threads of fate tugging westward. The Sindar continue to defend their lands, unaware that allies, fearsome, fiery, and burdened with their own doom, will soon come crashing into Middle-earth like a storm breaking on stone. For now, the first wars rage on. Fires dim, rivers cry quietly over churned banks, forests lean inward as if to shield themselves. But soon, everything will change, and Morgoth's secret return will no longer be secret at all. The battles hush now, fading into the distance, like embers cooling beneath a long night's breath. The forests of Beleriand grow still once more, the smoke settling into memory rather than menace. Each branch that trembled with war begins to relax, returning to the slow, patient rhythm that trees understand better than any living thing. The rhythm of waiting, of healing, of remembering what has passed without clinging to it. The rivers soften too. Their waters, once chilled by fear, warm again as they slide over stone, carrying the faint echoes of hoofbeats and footfalls away into gentler lands. Even the wind, which carried warnings and whispers through starlit canopies, eases into a calmer sigh, drifting between leaves with the quiet promise that peace, however fragile, still has a place in Middle-earth. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the land settling. Long breaths, slow exhalations, a calm stretching outward like ripples across a moonlit lake. The weight of shadow lessens, becoming something distant rather than looming. The sky brightens, not with fire, but with the steady glow of stars that have watched countless ages pass and still shine on without haste. Allow yourself to rest inside that stillness. Let the fading images drift away, the clash of weapons, the cries of hunters and hunted, the glow of distant fires. Let them dissolve into the soft hum of a world returning to quiet. Breathe with the trees, settle with the stones. Feel the comfort of a realm easing back toward gentle twilight. And as the last traces of battle lift into the high, open air, let your thoughts drift with them, lighter, quieter, carried on a soft wind that wants nothing more than to guide you into rest.